God, I love when I go on live and it's like half your face.
How
are you? It's so good to see you.
I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to be talking about this. Adam and I always talk about how you and I are so similar. We have like similar backgrounds, similar intentions, similar approach to work and stuff. And it's so awesome to see you do you, because I'm just like, yes, we need more people who are doing work this way. And we need more people who just realize that you don't have to be one thing. And we've always been told and taught that, like, when you get a degree and then you do this one job and then you're this one thing, and that's really not how it has to be. It's just how convenient it is for other people to put you in a box, because
Amen.
That's how we like to digest things. How, like, do you relate? Do you agree?
Oh my God, beyond. Well, first off, thank you for saying all these things, because I admire you so much. You know, I have for a long time. So I am so grateful that you're sharing your space with me today. So to even be considered in your category, in your field, is an honor for me. So
thank you.
Of course. But yes, I do relate to all those things so much. I think right now, especially with digital media and social media, it's so easy for people to just like categorize a person. And you and I work so hard on so many different things that it always just kind of feels, I don't think people do it intentionally, but to us, it almost like comes across as insulting sometimes. And it's just, I think it's also a challenge for us to further define our narrative and bring people into our world in a different way that allows them to not see us in this box. So I accept the challenge.
I love your framing of it being a challenge and accepting it as a challenge. It's interesting and it's hard, and it definitely is a challenge. Like, I just got off of a team call this morning, and I was sharing frustrations, and of course there are tons of frustrations right now because of the world that we live. It's so hard. It's just hard to work right now, especially if you're freelance, especially if you're self-employed. It's the most challenging that it's ever been. And so it was like the phrase, like, well, you know, you're also hard to sell because I do really well in rooms, but you know, it's so hard to kind of like pinpoint like what exactly you are. And I'm just like, but I'm all of the things that I do. Like, I do all of these things. And so I realized, okay, I think that like the thing that remains constant is that I creatively solve problems through stories, whether it be through podcast, documentary, whether it be through brand consulting, whether it be through like sitting in a boardroom and making decisions with people and figuring it out. And so we just have to think differently. And that's why we are able to embrace different aspects of what we do. But I feel like I didn't always embrace or celebrate that. I thought that, like, oh my gosh, I need to, like, you deal with imposter syndrome.
Oh my God, all the time.
You're like, I don't even really know what I do, but I know that I love what I do. But to everybody else, like, they're going to see it a very type of way. Like, and I think I would say when you are an entrepreneur and you're a social public figure, the easiest name that anybody can put on you is influencer.
It's so funny. On my show, I ask people, I bring on a lot of different influencers. And every time I ask the question, I start at the show, I say, explain what you do.
Yeah.
More than half the time, like, there's just a dead silence after I've asked the question. And I think it's interesting because I think we as a society have been trained to like have one label. But like when I explain to people what I do, I'm like, okay, like, do you have 2 minutes? Because I'm going to give you the full spiel. And like, that's important to me because I want to encompass everything that I do. And I don't want to make it easy for you and just give you this like one line of what everybody has been telling me I have to say. So usually I'll be like, you know, I'm a journalist, I'm a digital creative, and I host the show, and this is what the show's about. And I'm a storyteller, and I want to create space for people to say, oh, like, you feel that too? Me too.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you a trick that a comedian and a consultant that I worked with one time told me about when people ask you what you do, especially in a work setting. And this is like for anybody who's watching who is like, you know, you're working for yourself, you're entrepreneurial, you have your own business, whatever it is. And she said, when people say, what do you do? After you've like had that introduction, learn about, like, we're very curious people. So we tend to like learn about people first before they get a chance to ask us that. And she says, okay, so then you say, well, you know how and then you insert a problem that somebody might have. So you know how like in workplaces, there's a lot of miscommunication. Sometimes there's drama and passive aggressiveness. And instead of just like being really straightforward, people beat around the bush and then they'll just like, there's a toxicity, whatever. Well, I come into companies and I speak about this, or I help solve this problem. And it's something that is like so rooted in like the solution for it is storytelling, is connection, is honesty. And we work in that space. And the person is just like, wait, we have that problem. Oh my gosh, maybe you could help. And like actually bring you in to help either consult or help shift their story or narrative, or create spaces that are more honest. And I realized like that when you have that mindset and you have that kind of problem solver mindset, it allows for so much more creativity and possibility. And then when you are a multidimensional person, it becomes more celebrated because it's like,
right,
you have this foundation, but you have expertise in all of these lanes and you're able to bring something to the table.
Yeah, I think the same. I feel the same way, where it's like, you know, my past experience is all over the map, as most people's are. You know, it's never a straight line. But I think all of those things have given me this like unique skill set that I bring into my podcast episodes every day that, you know, the average person might not have. But I think in saying that, like what has helped me the most is like analyzing two things. One, like what are you naturally good at? Like what is something that people know you for? And for me, I was a dancer growing up. And so I was on stage all the time. I loved ballet. It was my life. I literally thought I was going to do it for the rest of my life. But I quit when I was 17. But for me, what was instinctual was being on stage, captivating an audience, making them care about something, and bringing them into a different world. So that was my analysis. And like, what am I good at when I'm a kid? And then it's like, what are you passionate about? And for me, it was storytelling. It was journalism. So like, if you can ask yourself those two questions, and sometimes it takes some like introspection into your childhood, which is challenging at times, but like, you know, ask your family, ask your friends, but you should also know what you're good at. You know, I loved public speaking. That was like, I was never afraid of stage fright. I didn't really have any of that. I loved having open conversations. So just marrying those two things in my like later in life have been really useful for me in like honing in on that and letting that shine. And I want to be really open about the fact that like, sorry, I got a phone call.
No,
I hate that you can't turn that
I
off.
know. I always put the silence in it.
Even if I silence, how do you, like, I don't even know.
We'll discuss this later. Not disturb.
Oh, I'll do it later. But so like, even if like, you know, marrying those two later in life for me was really important in terms of just like shaping where I'm at now. And like, again, I'm still on that journey. I think it's a lifelong thing of like refining what it is that you like and getting to that point. But yeah, I think like if you can ask yourself those two questions and like set the focus, like you're more set up for success in terms of defining what it is that you do, no matter how big or small.
Yes. And so a couple of points of contact are, I think the inner child thing is something I feel very strongly about. I've always said that my definition of how to figure out what your purpose is combining your skill sets and your talents with the causes that pain you. And to start with like the skill sets and talents of like what you're saying, I agree with you. I believe that we have always known since we were kids what it is that we were meant to do, what we wanted to do. I like started going up to microphone. I also did ballet as a kid, and that's why I was smiling really big, because that brings me so much joy. But I've always like would ask people questions. I would go up to mics, and I was so curious, and I was lucky enough that my parents never discouraged me from leaning into curiosity. I was always encouraged to ask people questions. And that was something that I held really dear to me. But I also realized that so many people lose that sense of embracing that inner child because of fears, insecurity, people projecting onto you, this worry that, you know, society, this isn't what your place is in society, or this isn't going to make you enough money. But when you figure out what that is, which, by the way, like your inner child still exists inside of you. It's never too late to start reparenting. It's never too late to like build a relationship with that part of yourself. But when you're able to take that and like combine it with causes that pain you. And what I mean by that is because people today are always trying to find, you know, like you feel a sense of hopelessness because it seems like there are so many problems that are just unsolvable, but your responsibility is not to solve the world's problems. Your responsibility is to like find your purpose and align with it and live in it. And in that, you find the causes that you feel very passionately about. So for me, if that was like misrepresentation of marginalized communities, violence, like sexual violence, homelessness, those are the causes that like I'll tell stories around, I'll do work around, and you always feel good from that. You're always feeling in purpose. So how do you personally use your like storytelling? What aspect of storytelling really makes you feel most aligned with your purpose?
Yeah. I think I often try to like redefine, I think in defining my purpose, I often try to like redefine the idea of like what it means to feel power or feel empowered. And I think that today we have this like misconception of like power being like, oh, what your title is at work, or like what office you have, or like the suit you wear. And to me, power is so much about like, how do you connect with yourself? Like, are you in tune with your inner self, your mind, your soul, and like what you want your purpose to be? So I really like tie those two concepts together. Like purpose and power to me are interchangeable. And I always like try to redefine the idea of power in my mind. To me, power and purpose is about using what I have inside and that connectivity that I have with myself and sharing it with other people. So, and especially like in making other people feel their power too, because I think oftentimes what you were saying earlier, like people feel silenced, people feel like they can't connect with themselves. So anytime that I'm able to, you know, hone into my own power and what makes me feel good and my purpose and share that strength with someone else so that they can feel empowered and they can find their purpose and the room and space to speak, that's where I feel most at purpose and at home in my storytelling, is when I create the space for people to find their own power and their own creativity and like what it is that makes them special. And that doesn't just come across even in my guests. Like I love moments on my show when people are like, oh wow, like I haven't thought about that before. And like that's something that, you know, whether it's asking a really interesting question and they're like, oh my God, like I didn't make those connections. Like that's a really powerful moment for me. But also on the other side of that, knowing and getting DMs from my audience or my listeners and being like, oh my God, like I feel this way and I didn't know other people feel that too. That's my purpose. And that's, again, my power, is like, how are you using the power that you have with the platform and your voice and helping other people find theirs too?
100%. I love that. And I love that notion of like leaning into your power. I've always felt like kind of weird about when other people say like I'm here to empower you, or like women empower always from this notion that the power isn't there and I'm going to give it to you.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's about like, I don't want to give someone a voice. I want to help you find your voice. Like that's the difference. And
it's helping people reclaim their power.
Yes, I agree with you. Like I want to empower you and stuff like that. Like it feels like kind of like voyeuristic in a way. Maybe that's the wrong word, but like, you know, I think everybody has it in them. They just need to find the portal that like lets them feel safe enough to do it.
Yeah. And that's on us. I think that's on us as people who choose to be vulnerable, who choose to be really open and creating spaces that allow for people to do the same. There's one comment that somebody just typed that I wanted to share because I felt like I learned, like, I really love this. But having hobbies also helps people with their inner child because it allows people to feel more like themselves no matter what your age is. And it's such a great reminder, because especially when you're self-employed, it's really hard to have hobbies because it just feels like everything is work in a great way. And we're so lucky.
100%.
But also
like
you're like
the split, like where you shut off and like go into you time, and especially during quarantine, has been an impossible feat for me. And I'm pretty good about my self-care. Like I think I am really good with like taking breaks and taking me time. But during this, it's like I feel like I'm in a time warp. I don't really know when the days end, what week it is. Like I think it's July 2nd.
My friend was just like, hey, what are you doing for July 4th? And I was like, is that like this weekend? What day is it? What's happening? I don't know. Okay, so now we're at a place where you figure out what makes you you. You figure out what gives you purpose and what gives you joy. How do you begin to advise people on either turning that into a business or incorporating it into their already like budding or building career trajectory?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I always say this, but you have to bet on yourself. And I think people are like, okay, that's corny in some way, but like, I'll use myself as an example. And by the way, I'm just going to be very clear about I'm still on this journey. And I think the sooner that you can admit that you're on the journey, you're not a finished product, and you feel open to share that journey, the better off everybody will be.
And also, there's never a finished product. We are on the journey. Like, this is the most fun part.
I feel like people, and I'll answer your question, but I feel like people, especially on social media right now, feel this pressure to always look finished. Like, always look like, hey, this is me in my finite form. I'm great. My product is great. And that's awesome. But like, I want to always be talking about the polar opposite of that. Like, I want to consistently be on this journey. I want to consistently be open about the fact that I'm on this journey. And you will never see me as a finished product. Like, we're growing together. I'm 26. I started Friend of a Friend when I was 20. Like, my audience is very much accustomed to the fact that you guys are growing up with my business. And I will always say that forever. But going back to how to really do the thing, it's like you have to bet on yourself in the way that, like, we talk about manifesting, right? To me, manifesting is not just sitting in a room and being like, I want this, I got it. We have every resource on the planet at our hands right now. Social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok.
If you have access to this video, you have untapped potential and resources.
100%. And if you're tuning in, like, hi. But yes, I think manifesting that in a physical way is really important. So like, I think I was 24. I had a really wide range of experiences. I started my blog at 20. I was writing about fashion and culture and food and beauty. And I had worked for incredible companies. Like, I had been working for Glossier, I had worked for Ryan Seacrest for a little bit. I had done like a really wide range of things while also building my own brand. And I was writing for Forbes, and I always wanted a show. I wanted a talk show. I wanted to create space for people to tell their stories. But was I doing that at that time? I was going around and telling people that was my goal and that's what I wanted. But how was I physically manifesting that besides actually telling people what I wanted? And that was like a spark moment for me where it was like, okay, like, you've done all these things. How are we going to take that skill set and actually turn it into something that you can show people you're doing? So I started a podcast, and here I am a year later with over 40 episodes and years and episodes to go, but at least I've manifested what I want. So if you're a singer, start recording your music, put it on YouTube. If you're an artist, draw, post it on Instagram, sell it there. Like, at least put some sort of physical manifestation to the dreams that you're having so that you can better put yourself in the place to succeed in that realm instead of just saying that you're all of these things. And I think if you're not yet at that point, which a lot of people aren't, like, some people, you know, are not feeling like the bravery yet to put themselves out there, research, maybe take an internship. Like, all of those things were so crucial to me in terms of, like, again, refining my skill set, but also putting myself out there and understanding, back to our original conversation, what it was that I really wanted.
I relate to that so much. I think that you, like, when you were sharing that, the image that was popping into my head was like a very steady, like, putting one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And it's hard when you're doing it because you don't see what's ahead and you don't see where you're going. But this idea of betting on yourself, and to the person who just asked, getting past that fear, so much of that exists within, like, trusting yourself to show up for yourself. And I'll give it like a tangible example of that. The last speaking engagement that I gave, which was just a few days before we started quarantine, I remember it was like a completely new speech that I was writing. I had never shared it before. It was a corporate audience, so I was terribly nervous. And I remember just looking at my work and looking at how crinkled the papers were because I had been holding it and marking it up and looking at it so much, and taking a deep breath and just saying to myself, like, my brain is going to show up for me. My brain is going to show up for me, and I will remember this, and it might not be, and it won't be verbatim what it looks like on paper. It's not going to be exactly how you envision it, but it is going to be how it was meant to be portrayed, how it was meant to be shared. And I got over this moment of fear because I've always had this thing where when I first started speaking, I would have these speeches written out, and I would always make sure the speech was on stage with me, and I would keep it at the podium. And because it was there, and because I knew it was there, I would trip up and I would reference my speech because it was a crutch that was there for me.
Yep.
Then I stopped doing that, and I stopped trying to memorize, and I trusted myself, and I said, whatever it is that I say up there is exactly what is meant to be said and exactly what the audience needs to hear. And once I trust that, like when I walk off stage, I'm not going to say, man, I should have said that, because I'm trusting that that was what was meant to be said. And then when you finally surrender and you let go of it, and I don't bring anything up, or maybe I bring like a short set list up, those are the moments where I thrive the most, because I'm not setting boundaries for myself. I'm not putting myself into a box. I'm not giving myself structure. I am letting words flow through me and trusting that because I have trust in something bigger than myself, trust in my brain, trust in God, trust in the universe, and you're connected to that you, like, what you create, what you say is going to be so much bigger than what you prepared. And that's the thing that people are looking for, is like this sense of deep connection and realness. And they just want to know that they are being seen, heard, and valued. People just want to know that you see them. And when you get to that and you actually are able to put yourself in a position where you can see people, things completely change. And I feel like that ends up being a huge tool in your business, is just like,
100%.
I don't know what it is about them, but there's something.
I think it's also important to note, like, lean into that fear a little bit. Like,
yeah,
there's no way that you're not, look, even though I love public speaking and I'm not afraid, we're all a little nervous before we get on an Instagram live or talk in front of an audience of people. We're only human. But I always remind myself, there's a video that I watched a couple of years ago, and the big takeaway from it was that the best things are always on the other side of fear. Like, okay, you're really, really afraid about this one moment. When you get up on stage and you're speaking in front of all these people and they feel seen and heard, and it's more, and you feel that community, like, that's the aha moment. It's just getting over that fear, that initial fear that will totally overtake your body, and leaning into it a little bit and being like, you know what? Okay, I'm afraid right now, but I'm totally going to do it. And at the end of this, I'm going to feel gratified by what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you use your fear and when you use your nerves, if you channel it and you tap into it, I think that people see that as authenticity.
Yes.
Like 100%. They see it as you being real.
How many times have we all loved seeing someone on stage go, oh my God, I'm so nervous right now, but let's do it. And all of us are like, cool. Like,
okay, great.
I totally feel seen in that, because I couldn't be doing what you're doing right now, but I like that you admitted that.
Yeah, totally. I do an activity called If You Really Knew Me at my talks. I was just going through cards I did the activity in a room filled with all women from all over the world, all C-suite executives.
Wow.
And literally, the one on the top right now is, if you really knew me, you would know that I'm terrified of speaking in public. And a bunch of them, of course, are, just imposter syndrome, fear of disappointing people, fear of not believing that they deserve the position that they're in. And I think that when you realize that everybody goes through that, then you know that you can step into whatever your role is and what you're trying to do, because it's like everybody's in this together. We all know. We are all trying. We are all doing our absolute best. And when you create a space where people can show up as themselves too, I think that you end up inevitably breeding so much creativity and ideas because of the sense of freedom people finally have.
Totally.
I feel like it's not free.
This goes back to also what we were saying about, finding what it is that makes you powerful. And I think especially you, and why I look up to you, is because you are someone that people admire and you're a public figure, but you are so honest about your journey and those fears. And I think that's really important as somebody that is guiding these conversations and is usually the person that's supposed to, you know, make everybody feel calm and make your guests feel calm. I think it's important to break down that third wall. And really, you know, show that you're human too. And I think that, you know, that applies across the board. It's like, I always want to see people that I admire and look up to and that are in positions of strength to kind of show me the soft side a little bit.
I love that. That's our commitment. That is our commitment.
That's it.
We're going to lean into being soft and truthful and using our fear to just show up for ourselves and show up for our audience and our listeners and people who are watching. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me on again.
It felt like 2 seconds.
I know. I wish we had like 5 more hours.
Okay, how can we support you and support your work?
You guys can subscribe to the podcast. It's called Friend of a Friend. We release new episodes every Monday morning at
But you do have some video or like video clips.
Yeah. Coming soon, so stay tuned. But yes, there are video components on Instagram that you can watch. I usually post IGTVs just like you, where people can like really get involved in a specific part of the conversation. So shoot me a follow at Liv Perez. You can find it on the top left.
And you have a newsletter.
I do have a newsletter. It doesn't come out consistently. It's more of, like you say, it like comes directly from my heart when I feel like I have something to say. I don't want to flood all of your inboxes when I don't.
But how can we subscribe to it?
You can go to friendofafriend.us, and on the contact page, you'll be able to subscribe.
Amazing. Thank you, Liv.
Thank you for having me.
So
and thanks
much.
to everybody who tuned in. I really appreciate it.
Mwah. Talk to you soon.
Have a beautiful day. Bye, guys.
Bye. That was Olivia Perez. You can follow her at LIVVPEREZ and subscribe to Friend of a Friend. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Tomorrow is going to be our last AYS hour for a little bit, and we are going to be talking to a Black-owned coffee company, Black and Bold, and we're going to be teaching you how to make some coffee drinks and talking more business things. So I hope you are able to tune in. We released a new episode of The Process yesterday on video, and if you prefer podcasts, it's there. So make sure you go watch it. It is the process of letting your work speak for itself. Isn't that awesome? I thought it was pretty awesome. We talked to the creative director of Revlon at Ruba. She's brilliant. So yeah, I hope you're all having an awesome day, and I'm so grateful that you tuned in. Talk to you soon. Bye.